Hi, welcome to Asian American Life. I'm your host, Ernabel DeMillo. Well, it's officially summer, and I got to explore one of New York City's neighborhood gems, Little Manila, Queens. Plus, it's the 40th anniversary of Vincent Chin's murder. We'll reflect on what that means for Asian American civil rights. We'll have that story coming up, but first, here's a look at what's ahead on our show.
Dinner on a Dime will show you how to cook healthy meals for just $20 a week. And for the first time ever, New York celebrates not one, but two parades honoring Asian Americans. Spoken words, hip-hop artists speak out against hate and remembering Vincent Chin 40 years after his murder. This and more on Asian American Life.
Recently, New York City Council made it official honoring the Filipino community in Woodside, Queens. This month, the corner of 69th and Roosevelt will be codenamed Little Manila Avenue. And that's where I decided to spend the afternoon.
Oh, we're in the middle of Little Manila, Queens, right in the heart of Woodside. So, 7 trains around here, buses are flying around. We got everyone just walking around here. So it's a bit loud, but welcome.
Little Manila is little, just a stretch of blocks along Roosevelt Avenue below the 69th Street subway station. But it's brimming with businesses, restaurants and shops catering to New York's Filipino community.
The footprints of the Filipinos are here. Anywhere you look here, you feel like you're in the Philippines, Manila in particular.
Dennis Nepomuceno and his partner Bong Bungalan own Kusina Pinoy Bistro, a restaurant and go-to nighttime hotspot. They opened in 2019. Then came 2020.
Before we reached our first year anniversary, we were closed. So it was very difficult for us not knowing when we're going to open again.
What they did was take the restaurant and music outside, bringing a festive atmosphere to Roosevelt Avenue. And it's what the community needed at the time, hard hit by COVID. When he's not at the restaurant, Nepomuceno is a nurse. In fact, many residents here work in healthcare, and many were impacted by COVID. In honor of the Filipino nurses and healthcare workers, artists and activists painted a mural just below the subway stop. Mabuhay, which means welcome in Filipino, was unveiled in June 2020. Several elected officials attended, including then City Councilman Jimmy Van Bramer.
Which Jimmy Van Bramer noticed at the dedication ceremony this plastic sign, Little Manila, and he said he would help make it happen.
It being getting the City Council to recognize Little Manila. There had been several efforts to do this in the past, but now there was traction, including a petition signed by more than 3,000 people. In 2021, Van Bramer's resolution passed the City Council. This month, June, the southwest corner of Roosevelt and 70th will be co-named Little Manila Avenue.
What does it mean for you and the community?
I can't articulate that. It's so meaningful to have a public recognition of the more than 50 years of Filipinos living and thriving here in Queens.
According to the latest census, 86,000 Filipinos and Filipino Americans live in New York City, with more than 54% living in Queens. Many of the Filipinos moved to the borough after being recruited to work at nearby hospitals that were facing nursing shortages. By the 1990s, 72% of Filipino immigrants in New York were registered nurses. Xenia Diente's mother is a nurse. Her family moved to Woodside in 1976.
I also remember at the age of 6, my mom had errands to do, and they dropped me off here in Philam Food Mart, and I was babysat because my mom is good friends with Joseph's mom.
Joseph is Joe Castillo. His parents owned the iconic Philam Food Mart, a longtime popular stop for the Filipino diaspora.
Every day after school, I was here doing my homework in the back or upstairs. Never had a summer job. It was always here.
When you enter the store, it's like stepping into, well, Manila. The lines are long, with shoppers buying a taste of home, from spicy pork longanisa to Sky Flakes crackers.
Growing up in my school, which I went to school, you know, not too far from here, I was one of like 2 or 3 Filipino kids in the neighborhood. Now that my own children are going to school here, like half their class is Filipino.
Castillo is thrilled the street in front of his family's shop will be a small nod to the Filipinos who live and work here.
Small but mighty, right? Yeah, no, and it's great. I think we have such a rich culture to share. Just like any other community, I think it feels great to be, like you said, part of the tapestry that makes the city great.
Steve Raga is also a Queens native, and now he's hoping to be the first Filipino-American elected to serve in New York State office.
This is where my family is. This is what I call home. This is where my community is. And I was, you know, I could have been anywhere else, but this is exactly where I want to live, work, and contribute.
He announced his campaign in April after the Queens Democratic Party tapped him to replace his old boss, Brian Barnwell, to represent the 30th Assembly District. He says the street name is great, but it's just the beginning.
Getting an honorary street name should absolutely just be the first step. There's a lot more that our community needs, our neighborhood needs. So it's good that we have a unified effort to get the street sign, and we'll see where we can take it from here.
In Little Manila, I'm Ernabel DeMillo for Asian American Life.
What would you eat with $20? For some, it might be a restaurant meal, but oftentimes the best meals you can have are the ones cooked in your own kitchen. I spoke with Delish's senior food producer Jun Xie to talk about what's it like cooking food on a budget. As an always curious cook, Jun Xie enjoys the everyday activity of making food.
My favorite part about cooking is seeing the transformation happen. You're like a mad scientist. You take 2 ingredients, you apply heat in some way, it turns into something else. It's almost like alchemy. Hello and welcome back to this dingy little kitchen.
And inside her own kitchen, she shares her love for food on a Webby Award-winning YouTube show known as Budget Eats.
Budget Eats is a show where I take a certain budget, usually $20, $25, buy all the groceries that I can afford with that, and use almost every single last bit of those groceries to cook through a whole week of meals if I can make a stretch that far.
Unlike traditional food media, Budget Eats attempts to mirror what people do on a daily basis to put food on the table.
Making use of what you have instead of going out to buy more ingredients to do what another recipe dictates you to make seems natural to me, but is reading almost revolutionary to a lot of my viewers. I have a lot of messages coming through that says, I changed the way people cook. It's fascinating to me because this is the way I grew up cooking.
From vegetables and poultry to ingredients used for the first time, Xie uses both the familiar and unfamiliar to cook food. Some ingredients even make regular appearances, including
peanut butter. Peanut butter is almost featured on all of the episodes of Budget Eats. It is very versatile. Peanuts especially can be crunched into a topping, can be turned into a nut butter that can then be used in sauces.
June also uses her show as a platform to challenge stereotypes about food, including the stigmatization of monosodium glutamate, or MSG.
A lot of people hear me use MSG and see me use MSG and they say, why are you putting MSG in your food? It's bad. And then I say, why do you think it's bad? Who did you hear this from? And just for me to make MSG make an appearance in the videos is, I think, making a statement without making a statement. Having us question the values that we tie to food that we don't think about and why we think of some ingredients as lesser than others.
In her videos, Xie often credits her style of cooking to her parents, especially her mother, who unexpectedly passed away last fall.
I used to visit her every weekend, and I would bring my laundry and do my laundry, and we would chat, and she would cook me this whole meal. And it would be way too much food for just the 2 of us to eat, but she would do it for me because I came once a week. That was like her time together. I don't think I realized until after she passed away how much love was being expressed through those dishes. Woo! We got fire! Kai Fama! Cheers!
The memories of her mom now live on in Budget Eats, where Xia finds moments to honor and remember her mother.
My mom told me to always blanch raw meat once before cooking it to get rid of stinky flavors or off notes. And that's something that I do. I feel like small things like that stay with me. She wasn't a culinary mastermind, but she was my mom, so she obviously taught me most of what I know.
A show conceived during the COVID-19 pandemic, Budget Eats has in the end given Xie an opportunity to cook to her heart's content.
I don't think Budget Eats would have happened as a show if the pandemic didn't happen. It gave me so much control over what to put in front of the camera and to the audience that would have never happened otherwise if I were still shooting in the test kitchen studios at Delish.
And when asked what she would tell people looking to tap into their own cooking skills,
my advice is just try it. Don't worry about what the recipe says. Don't worry about what the rules of cooking and even baking are. Just try it. See for yourself. And without making your fair share of experiments, you won't know what it tastes like. So just try it. You could make the next big thing on the internet. There is no formula for success beyond fulfilling your own sense of curiosity and making yourself happy and enjoying life. I'm always ready to eat.
I'm Michael Tam Suryamat for Asian American Life.
I'm Vivian Lee. The Big Apple recently celebrated the first ever parade for not one, but two different groups. The first ever Asian American Pacific Islander Cultural and Heritage Parade marched down the Avenue of the Americas on a sunny Sunday in May. And the day before, the first ever Japan Parade marched down Central Park West. The inaugural Grand Marshal of that parade was none other than the man best known as the Starship Enterprise's helmsman, Lieutenant Sulu.
3, 2, 1, Japan!
The honor of leading the first Japan parade in New York City ever is not lost on actor George Takei. The 85-year-old's fame is rooted in Star Trek and grew because of his civil rights activism on LGBTQ and AAPI issues. But as one of the roughly 80,000 American citizens of Japanese descent forced to live in prison camps during World War II because of their ethnicity, Takei could only imagine what a parade devoted to Japanese culture in America might look like. And he takes none of this adulation and support for granted.
We're celebrating with this Japan parade is the sharing of each other's heritage, culture, traditions, pop culture, and the foods. I mean, that's what makes life so interesting. In the United States now, we have the recurrence of Asian hate and violence. Horrific. It was that same thing that put me in American prison camps in the swamps of Arkansas or in the high plains of California. Ignorance. Our democracy is existentially dependent on teachers who teach us the meaning of the noble ideals of our democracy. Rule of law, equal justice.
The parade commemorates some of that history, marking the 150th anniversary of both the first diplomatic visit by a Japanese ambassador and the introduction of baseball to Japan. Suki Ports, a former board member of the Japanese American Association of New York, suggests more should be taught in schools.
The New York City Board of Education really needs to work on a curriculum of Asian history, of the Asians coming to America, and the history of immigration, different generations coming. We're not all from one country. I mean, if you talk to the majority of New Yorkers, they can point out where Chinatown is. But that's the end of what Asian means.
Developing multicultural curricula in K-12 and university systems is a central theme of the Unity March in Washington, D.C. on June 25th. Asian American groups partner with organizations representing Black, Latinx, LGBTQ, Arab, and spiritual leaders, calling for a national effort to combat hate and ignorance in all forms. I'm Vivian Lee for Asian American Life.
After 2 years of living through a pandemic and rising anti-Asian hate, Tayo Na and Magnetic North decided it was time to put on a live concert to heal a community with spoken word and music.
I speak from the streets of Lenape Hoking. All my relations need reparations. Power to the people. Our dispositions belong to the land with First Nations permission. Box 2.
This event's called Hollow and Heal. We hope you find it healing. We hope you find some peace in this community.
It was an evening of music and healing at the Flushing Town Hall to benefit CAV, Organizing Asian Communities, a group that's been working to stop police and hate violence in New York City since 1986.
Please donate to CAV, Organizing Asian Communities.
First things first, you are never alone. Whenever you need me, hit me up on headphones, and I'll be right there. Don't panic at all. I'm so off the hook, I'll always answer your call. Any company hears a familiar voice.
In response to the rise in anti-Asian hate, Tayo Na lined up Magnetic North, and One, and singer-songwriter Trey Lamb, who performed her song Dawn from the album This Joy by Resistance Revival Chorus.
America, beautiful. Your streets are paved with blood.
Being a poet in the oral tradition goes back pre-colonial times to all of our indigenous ancestors and ancestry. Our work has always been to show up and tell the stories that need to be told and pass on the knowledge that needs to be passed on.
While Asian Americans like Olivia Rodrigo and Silk Sonics dominated Grammys this year, Asian American musicians are rare in pop music, and those writing lyrics about the Asian American experience are even more invisible from major record labels.
I'm homesick though, in my own zip code, wistful, swimming like a fish in a fishbowl, wishful. What am I searching for? I'm looking for a place where I don't search no more.
So Asian American hip-hop artists like Tayo Na and Magnetic North cut their teeth touring the college circuit in the mid-2000s. Tivu says their lyrics resonated with their fan base.
It's funny because we were received like rock stars. People knew the lyrics and would tell us how much they resonated with it, or like how meaningful it was to see and hear representation of their lives in media.
This is the one way Asian American artists can steadily work. Is going from college to college, especially during certain seasons when college programming is happening.
April, May.
In the absence of Asian American studies on college campuses, Asian American hip-hop artists and performers filled a void, dropping knowledge about Asian American history.
A lot of those Asian American shows, those college showcases, were like a curriculum. You'd have that opening with like a spoken word artist that would teach you about our ancestors. You know, like we'd learn about Yuri Kochiyama from there. We'd learn about I don't know, it would be like a entertainment version of like our history.
It was important to try to honor and humanize the Asian American experience through music, because that was one of the ways I knew that I could connect with young people and really try to heal the young person in me. And I wanted to create that kind of curriculum, right, for young folks just a little bit of younger than me, and like. So it felt like almost like an evangelical thing.
Tayo Na, who's now an educator, says those college concerts were extracurricular events.
Our music, our art resonated with young folks and college students because they wanted the Asian American studies, not just like, one class here, one class there, but they wanted the Asian American studies where you can get music, comedy, literature, theater, politics, law, all of that. They wanted that full-fledged Asian American studies program that they couldn't get in their colleges.
Tayo Na says independent Asian American hip-hop artists paved the way for a new generation of Asian American artists who know that when the spoken word is passed, a dose of hope spreads to a community healing from hate.
Yeah, we got this right, 'cause even in the darkness soon comes the light. My people get strong, they got the fight. They roll up their sleeves when the times get tight.
For Asian American Life, I'm Rainer Ramirez.
It's been 40 years since a young Chinese American named Vincent Chin was brutally murdered in Detroit in a racially motivated attack. Chin's murder was a defining moment for the Asian American community and a reminder that the current surge of anti-Asian violence is not something new. On June 19, 1982, in Detroit, 27-year-old Vincent Chin was with his friends celebrating his bachelor party at the Fancy Pants Club when he got into a fight with two white auto workers. It was a time when Japan's dominance over the auto industry had sparked a powder keg of anti-Asian animosity in the Motor City of Detroit. Ronald Evans and Michael Nitz hurled racial slurs at Chin, who was Chinese American, as they beat him to death with a baseball bat, blaming him for job losses in their industry. Chin's murder and the aftermath as Asian Americans mobilized to demand justice are explored in the Oscar-nominated documentary Who Killed Vincent Chin by Christine Choi and Renee Tajima Pena.
Everybody asks me why I pick a film subject, and it's because something really pisses me off, and this just hit me in the gut.
Renee Tajima Pena is a renowned documentary filmmaker and a professor of Asian American Studies at UCLA. She was just a few years out of college in 1983, but already an activist when she learned about the brutal killing that had taken place a year earlier in Detroit.
I got this mailing with a clipping inside from Detroit about this murder. A young man, Chinese American named Vincent Chin, had been beaten to death with a baseball bat by Ron Ebens and Michael Nitz. They were two Chrysler workers. By March of 1983, Ron Ebens and Mike Nitz had pleaded guilty to manslaughter, and they were sentenced to no jail time and a fine. I think it was a $3,000 fine and some change, and 3 years probation.
Justice for Vincent Chin! Justice for Vincent Chin!
The failure of the criminal justice system to punish the killers sparked protests, first in Detroit, led by Helen Zia, and then expanded across the country, uniting Asian Americans and their allies in a national movement for justice.
There is something to getting together and building this collective power as Asian Americans, whether we're Korean or Chinese or Japanese or Filipino or South Asian or Southeast Asian. There's a reason we have to come together.
40 years since this murder, what's different? And also, what isn't?
The same problems in terms of the way we're seen as being a perpetual foreigner or a model minority, and the targeting with racial violence, because we're seen as the other, as being expendable. I think that was in play at that time in what's been happening with the surge of anti-Asian violence. We're seen as being, in an interesting way, because there's so many healthcare workers who have been in the news, so it's like we're seen as these, model immigrants, model minority, but also as the perpetual foreigner, as the China virus, the Kung flu, the bearers of disease.
Tajima Pena says that the surge of anti-Asian violence that's grown out of the pandemic has been met by a new response and resistance.
So you see people who were involved in the Vincent Chin movement who are a little older, more established, more experienced, but then you see this wider kind of, new generations and this larger group of Pan-Asian Americans who are being activated to campaign for justice, to defend our communities.
June 19th is the 40th anniversary of Vincent Chin's murder, and in Detroit, a 4-day commemoration is being planned to remember Chin's legacy and the movement for justice that continues for Asian Americans and their allies. I'm Kyung Yoon for Asian American Life.
We also asked Queens College president Frank Wu, who grew up in Detroit, to reflect on what the Vincent Chin case meant to him.
This case is so important
because for Asian Americans, it stands for all of the bias and discrimination and challenges that you face, no matter how hard you try to just fit in. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we've seen the same. Someone walking down the sidewalk, someone who's elderly, who's a woman, maybe on their way to church, is followed by someone who starts to shout those same racial slurs. Then they say, go back to where you came from. This is your fault. You people are making us sick. The Vincent Chin case was not the only case. There were cases before, and there have been cases since. That case, however, transformed the lives of so many people. I was just a teenager growing up. That case made me angry. It made me want to be an advocate and to learn how to use words for the power of good, not evil.
Well, that's our show for now. If you want to learn more about these stories, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Asian American Life. I'm Ernabelle DeMillo. On behalf of Team Asian American Life, have a great summer.